Hello, everyone. My name is Renaka Saira. I'm the secretary of the Professional Sales Club. So I want to thank you all for coming today to join us. We have three special guests here. They're going to speak about their journey of being a student and also to fulfilling a full-time career. And I want to appreciate you guys for taking your time and coming here and speaking with us. So again, thank you everyone for coming. I really appreciate it. The Professional Sales Club really appreciates it. So let's get the ball rolling. I'm gonna pass the mic to Alex.
Hello, everyone. Thank you guys for attending today. So our first panelist that we have today is Kyle Garlasco. So he's the one in the beige, awesome jacket. So a proud William Patterson graduate who earned his bachelor's degree in 2016 and his master's in 2019. So during this time here, he also played for the William Patterson University hockey team, and after later returned and coached for 5 years. So now he's the regional sales manager at Hilti, a global leader in construction, technology, and tools, where he manages a team of 8 account managers across the Northeast and Midwest Atlantic. With over 9 years of sales experience, Kyle has built his career around understanding client needs, building strong relationships, and leading teams to success. He's earned multiple honors, including Hilti's $1 million and also $3 million Sales Club Awards. Kyle's story shows how his drive, teamwork, and leadership can open doors to big opportunities after college. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Kyle Garlasco.
So I'm going to introduce our next speaker. Thank you again all for coming. We have Jeff Laniato. He is a 2013 graduate who has built an impressive career between technology sales and entrepreneurship. He's the director of sales at Optomotive, leading a CRM marketing platform, serving major companies and major brands in the sports betting industry. Since joining Optomotive in 2020, Jeff has earned Salesperson of the Year twice, in 2023 and in 2024. He has generated, in conjunction with his company, over $15 million in revenue. Before that, he was with other prominent companies. Outside of work, Jeff is a real estate investor, managing and growing a portfolio of rentals and Airbnbs. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Jeff Landiato. And last but certainly not least, we have Nick Balder. He's a leader in sustainability and environmental innovation. He's the senior sustainability consultant at Noresco. He helps the organization achieve decarbonization through ESG goals and through greener efficiency building strategies. He's a proud William Patterson University graduate with dual degrees, and we're happy to have him join us today. Please help me in welcoming him. Thank you.
So thank you guys so much for joining us here today. Thank you guys. Thank you guys for coming in, and I just want to say thank you to our panel for taking time out of their day to be here with us. And with that said, I'd like to get into the Q&A section of our program. So the first question is, why did you guys choose William Patterson for your undergrad? You can.
Sure. I'll kick it off, and I guess I'll start by thanking you guys for setting this up. Everything was run perfectly. Communication was great, so I really appreciate being back here. As we mentioned a couple times, right? This is my first time back on campus since I graduated, so it's really cool to see how the university is continuing to grow, continuing to invest in innovations for this facility, and beautiful place we're at right now. So it's really awesome to be back. My journey to get here, when I was in high school, I was actually local to the area, and I had a little bit of insight on the sales program at the time, but honestly, I came here to be an accounting major. So I started my time here in accounting and found the sales program. So I did receive an undergraduate minor in sales, but my career led me in the sales direction. So I really credit that to a lot of the sales classes that I took while here. So you guys are in a great spot. Really take advantage of all the sales opportunities and everything that this program has to offer for you while you're here.
Thank you. Nick, you want to go next?
Sure. The main reason that I came here was I was able to get a full academic scholarship. I was actually kind of set on going to Penn State, wanted to go to main campus. But looking at the price of college versus a full ride, yeah, it was very hard to pass up. And coming here and doing a tour of the campus, it was very comfortable. Just being able to walk to so many different places was really cool. And then seeing the business campus and kind of that stock trading room and what they had down in the sales department was really unique. So it definitely made that decision a lot easier to come here.
Thank you.
So we didn't know this until the second, but my journey to William Patterson was a little different. I started off at Penn State main campus when I was in high school. I thought I wanted to go to a big school, big football school, big party school. Was at Penn State for 2 years, and quite candidly, struggled academically after having a really strong performance in high school. Wasn't finding myself getting involved and taking advantage in all the things that a school like Penn State has to offer. Came to William Patterson my junior year and instantly was a better fit for me. Right away, started getting involved. I was writing for the Beacon. I became the editor of the Beacon. I worked over here with WP Presents in the Shea Center for Performing Arts, and I was selling sponsorships and just working in their marketing department, which was a really cool experience. Just instantly able to get experience, just the smaller, tight-knit community. Found myself in a much better spot. Actually didn't major in sales, majored in marketing, which we'll probably talk a little bit more about the journey. But yeah, I think everybody in this room is in a really good spot. And thank you again for having us.
Thank you. Thank you. And I know you guys touched a little bit on why you chose sales. And I know, Kyle, you said that you were new to it, but why did you stick with it?
Yeah, I mean, I think big picture, I think I was talking to one of you guys before about sales is really about selling yourself, right? Mm-hmm. And if you're able to sell yourself, make friends, make people that you want to do business with, it's really enjoyable, right? Mm-hmm. It gives you fulfillment on a day-to-day basis. Yes, there's going to be struggles. There's going to be those quotas that you have to hit. But if you're going about it with the attitude of, I'm doing what I really enjoy doing on a daily basis, you find fulfillment in that. Like I said, I found sales through a mentor here at William Patterson, was actually my hockey coach, and now I believe is actually the director of the sales department here, Ian Michaelchuk. He pursued me and just said, just take one class, right? Take a class, see how you enjoy it. And it really hit home that that's what I wanted to do for my career. So it's not always a linear path that you'll find, but along the way, if you put yourself out there and try different things, you might find your passion.
Thank you. And Nick, I'll ask you the same question. Why did you choose sales?
Sure. So originally I came in as a management major, kind of along the same thing. I wanted to take a class just to kind of see what it was like. When I first got to college, I was very shy. Interpersonal communication was not something that I excelled at, and figured, what are some of the ways that I can kind of overcome that and kind of learn how to be better. The intro to sales class definitely helped, and by the end of that first semester, I had gone in and done a double major, just because I really loved that class, and I just wanted to see what the other classes kind of had to offer.
Thank you. And I'd like to stick with you before I move on. So you mentioned that you were shy. As someone who originally, when I started here, I was shy too. How did you deal with confidence, when talking to professionals?
Sure. I think the biggest thing is kind of fake it till you make it. You just have to kind of put a smile on and good handshake and just try. You're gonna mess up. That's okay. This is kind of a learning experience here. That's why they videotape you, so you can see what you did wrong and see how to improve. And one of the things that I did was get involved with sales. Some of the other things that I did was working as a student ambassador and an orientation leader on campus, because having to speak to small groups, or sometimes in Shea, groups of 700 plus people at some of those, orientation days, was really helpful, because I do that in my job now on a regular basis, having to do interviews for projects that we're pursuing and trying to win. being around like a small table or a large kind of venue, and that's really helped in my career a lot.
Thank you. And Jeff, my question to you is, what campus resources, clubs, or experiences like helped you the most while you were a student here?
Sure. I mentioned a couple of them, just getting involved with the Beacon, and I still remember. So I was over here. I guess I was interning at the time for the Performing Arts Center, doing a bunch of different odd jobs for them. But was it twice a year, or maybe once a year, we would do the booklet, like the playbill, right? And part of that responsibility was going to local businesses and selling sponsorships. And I think at the time we were charging like $100. There were different sizes. There was like a $50 spot, $100 spot, and it was me and a couple other people. They would send us out into Wayne to the local restaurants and everything. And I still remember, it may have been like the first sale I've ever made was a barbershop on Hamburg. I don't know if it's still there or not. The guy bought $100 spot. And I remember like when he said yes, just wow, like something like lit up. Wow, what I was shocked that he was taking it, because I had gotten a bunch of no's before that. But yeah, this was 10 plus years ago, and it was a marketing intern role. Again, like I majored in marketing, but was able to start to hone some sales experience. And these two guys were asked why they chose sales, and I think in my case, I kind of fell into sales, and I think that is how it happens for a lot of people. So everybody who's in this room that is intentionally focusing on sales at this part of your career, it's such a leg up. Like, I'm going to make up numbers here, but I would say maybe like 3% of like the William Patterson graduating class is majoring, minoring, involved in sales, something like that. That's a low percentage, but I would guess that like 20 to 25% of the graduating class will end up in sales in some way. And that 20% gap of people who are going to end up in sales, like myself, but don't have this foundation of like the putting in the tape and learning sales concepts so early, you guys have such a huge leg up. So it's very cool to see.
Thank you. And this question is for all three of you. So what was the hardest part about transitioning from college to like your first sales job? Like, who wants to go first?
Sure. So it's a funny story, actually. I started at Hilti, company I'm with now, when I was still here at William Patterson. I got my offer in my last year, obviously my senior year. I started in May. I think I graduated at the end of May. But the hardest part of transitioning was that you are going to be a real person, right? You're going out into the business world where there's professionals out there. And I think, as you said earlier, right? Or you said earlier, fake it till you make it, right? Put on that face. It was you're not going to know everything, but you really have to be able to build your confidence and learn as you go to really make it in the sales industry. It's definitely a different structure that you're going to have on a day-to-day basis than when you're here at William Patterson. But if you build the right habits now, it can get a lot easier as you go into your professional careers.
Thank you. Nick?
Yeah, I also started my career at Hilti, actually, as well. So I think the hardest thing for me was contractors wake up really early. I had to be at my store at 7 a.m. every day, because if I was any later than that, they already got their tools. They already got their products for the day. I wasn't seeing them, so I had to make sure that I was at that store at 7 a.m. no matter what. And that was definitely kind of a mindset change, because especially my last year, I was working here full time, as an intern in the sales department, and I was taking all night classes. So I was a night owl, doing everything kind of then, and then having to make that shift to now I'm a morning person. That was a big challenge for sure, but was able to overcome it.
Thank you. And Jeff?
Sure. So my first job out of William Patterson, I was selling promotional products. So I was selling like branded goods to companies, so B2B sales. And the company that I ended up with sold to enterprise organizations. So they had a number of different big companies under contract, and I had a number of those accounts: DuPont, American Express, Kraft. And like right away from college, I'm finding myself in a room with, higher level executives that are twice my age, and trying to have conversations with them without, kind of going back to like the imposter syndrome, without feeling like I don't know anything, and I'm too inexperienced. So at the time I did a good job of aligning myself to mentors. So there were people that were older than me, that were more experienced at the company I was at, even just within that industry, making sure that I knew when I should be stepping in, what questions I should be asking. When there were times to push back, I would kind of maybe lean on them more to push back on clients about certain things, and felt like, I need to kind of find my role in that spot. So yeah, I kind of was thrown to the wolves a little bit and just started to feel out the business.
Thank you. You touched on something very important, which is imposter syndrome. I know a lot of students struggle with that, especially when they're going into like the professional space. So you briefly touched on it, but could you?
Sure.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, it's a real thing. I remember, so eventually I transitioned into software sales, which is what I'm doing now, and I've been doing for the last 8-9 years or so. And a big part of software sales, a big part of the sales cycle is demoing, right? So we're demoing software. Typically it happens over Zoom, sharing my screen. I'm showing a demo site to a potential client. And that's really like the meat and potatoes of that sales cycle. And I remember the first software company I was at, I was like a month in, I was doing onboarding and training. I'm learning, how do we demo? I'm learning the product. I'm learning the software. And I remember maybe I'm like 3 weeks in. That night I go to my wife, I'm like, let me do like a mock demo for you at home. So I get up the demo site. I remember I was on my laptop. I put it up on the TV. We did like a whole, role play thing, and I just like bombed. It was very clear that I just wasn't ready. I was like stumbling over my words. She was like playing along and asking questions, and I just was like, fumbling around the demo site. I just wasn't ready. I wasn't prepared. And I remember going into work the next day feeling very discouraged. And in like the little bullpen area at the office, there was this guy, Mitch, who he had been there for a number of years. He was like the top seller at the time. He was doing a demo. He was on Zoom, but not on video. This was like pre-COVID where video wasn't as required. And he was doing a demo. He's like verbally talking through the demo. And he's just like in his chair like this, just on Instagram, just scroll. He's talking through the demo, just scrolling Instagram, just like demoing subconsciously almost. And I remember being like, I'm putting all of my effort and all my focus into trying to do a good demo, and I can't do this. And this guy is just doing it effortlessly. And I still think back to that because eventually, like, I put in the time and I put in the reps and went through training, and probably, not that I made this a practice, but like probably could have done a demo while scrolling Instagram at some point, like 6 months later or something. And, eventually just got very effective at it. And I still think about that. Like, he had been there for 5 years. He had done hundreds of these demos. Like the solution, I guess, to imposter syndrome is just reps, just practice, just preparation, just doing it. Like even this panel, like we had the questions ahead of time. I don't think I'm like spoiling any anything here. Like I prepared what I was going to say. Like I think everybody is going to experience imposter syndrome, but being as prepared as possible is just like the antidote to being nervous or feeling like you don't belong.
I think another thing with imposter syndrome, if I can quickly, it's never going to go away, right? I've had multiple different roles at Hilti, right? I've been an individual contributor. I've been a sales specialist. I've been in a project management role. I've led people, right? Each time you take that next role, you're always going to get a little bit of imposter syndrome. But as was said, right, the preparation is what's going to help you get above that, right? So putting in the time, putting in the effort to be able to know what you need to do on a daily basis is going to help you build that confidence. And building confidence is a muscle, right? If you work at it, it's going to get stronger and stronger and stronger. So imposter syndrome is real. For someone that's been in the industry for 10 years, it's still there. So you just have to work at it.
Thank you. You want to add anything?
I agree a lot with what these guys have both said. My path was not linear into sales. I started at Hilti. When I started at Noresco, I was an estimator. I had never even looked at building drawings before, for the construction industry. I had to learn all of that. And then, I tried to do sales, and it's a very technical sale for where I work. And you have to be very familiar with a lot of different concepts. And I realized like I hit a plateau and I needed that technical background. So I went for 5 years and I was a project manager because I wanted to understand better, the process of how a building is constructed from design through, getting into the ground, getting out of the ground to finishing. And now, in the last year and a half, I've transitioned to a full-time salesperson because I have that kind of technical background. But, some days I still feel very rusty because I haven't been in sales. So, trying to, just practice. And that's really the biggest thing.
I'll add one more thing. So, I remember when I was interviewing for my current role, this was like 6 years ago, I was interviewing with the VP of sales and we were doing this like mock demo, and he asked me a question during the interview in like this role play format. And I didn't know the answer to it, and I tried to like dance around it and like BS my way through it. And then after he gave me feedback and he was like, if you don't know the answer to something, just say, I don't know. Just say, I don't know, I'll check on it for you. And I still think that that's really good advice. Like, going back to imposter syndrome and feeling like you're not comfortable. I think you can do so much more harm trying to convey that you know something that you don't, and kind of like create that mistrust. And just being able to say like, I don't know, I'll check on that for you is, first of all, like it's disarming, right? It's kind of, and if it's the truth, then that's usually the best policy to abide by.
Thank you. Thank you guys for sharing that. And a lot of what you said like really stuck out to me because I also sometimes deal with like imposter syndrome, like I don't belong or something. But and something that I do too is try to like practice, just so I'm more prepared so I don't feel as nervous. That was really helpful advice. So thank you. So my next question is, how do you stay motivated and positive after rejection or losing a sale? You want to kick off, Jeff?
Let me start, sure.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's all part of the game. I mean, there's ups and downs. I personally, I'm a little bit biased, I guess, but I think sales is the best job in the world. When it's going well, it's great. It's one of the few jobs where you can make doctor and lawyer money without needing to go to med school or law school. And, the downside of it is there's highs and lows, and like every seller, even the best sellers have lows. They have bad quarters, they have bad months, they have bad years. It's just part of the game. I think part of the key to dealing with the downside of it is not getting too high when it's going well, just like not getting overly confident, not feeling cocky when you have a good quarter or a good year or whatever, like making sure that you're still doing all the right things and still kind of sticking to the fundamentals of sales and all the things that you guys are learning about. So I think, kind of like mitigating the highs also helps with the lows. But I think at the end of the day, it's, I'll use like a poker analogy. It's like, just because you may have aces and you lose to a worse hand, you might lose to twos, right? It happens. But over time, you'll win that hand. You want to play aces against twos every time, even though sometimes you're going to lose. Sales is kind of the same idea. Like if you are doing the right things, if you are asking the right questions, taking the right approaches, practicing the right skills and tactics, like you're not going to win every deal. In software sales, like a good close rate's like 20-25%, meaning you're losing most of the time. And that's a good close rate. Sometimes it's even lower. So you have to just get comfortable with rejection. It's part of the role. It's part of the game. It's part of why it can be so lucrative, because the reality is that not everybody is equipped to deal with that. And I think the second thing is just making sure that you're continuing to do what works, even if it doesn't work in the midterm, even if it doesn't work for a month or a quarter. It doesn't mean that it's you shouldn't play aces.
And I'll make another kind of baseball analogy here. Hall of Fame batters are only hitting it once every 3 or 4 times. Like you were saying, close rates usually 20-30%. Like that's pretty typical. One way to kind of maybe increase that is learning how to qualify your leads better, to be able to make sure that you are, only spending your time on things that are higher probability. Or, something that I do a lot is try and get on multiple design build teams. That way you kind of increase your chances. It's a lot easier if you're on 5 out of 6 teams than only 1 out of 6 or something like that. But in terms of, what do you do after a rejection? How do you handle that? You got to find something that works for you. I like to, if it's something that was like something I spent a lot of time on and really bummed out, I usually just go for a really long walk with my dog. I work from home most days, so that makes it a lot easier to do something like that. But, figure out ways to be able to kind of celebrate your small wins. That way, when you have a loss like that, it doesn't take away from everything, you know?
Sorry, before I move on, you guys mentioned close rates. What is that?
It's I mean, typically it's like the number of deals that you win out of the number of total deals. So there's different ways of calculating it, but it's the probability of a deal closing, basically. So if you have a 20% close rate, it means for every 5 opportunities, the average, you're going to close one of them, basically.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, you go ahead.
No, I think they nailed it, right? A lot of the stuff that we deal with, rejection is going to happen daily, right? And once you're aware of that, and once you know how to handle that, it becomes a lot easier. I like to go back to this. It's a children's book, honestly, and it's called Who Moved My Cheese. I don't know if anyone's ever seen that or heard of that, but it's about finding opportunities when something that you've been doing previously isn't there anymore, right? So being able to say, hey, I've been really successful with this in the past, but for some reason this isn't working out anymore. What do I need to change internally for myself to make this change, right? Is it a new way of going about sales? Is it practicing a new tactic to go towards, selling to your clients? A lot of times it's a lot of internally looking and seeing what I'm doing, what I can possibly do better, and maybe the outcome is going to change, right? If you keep doing the same thing over and over again, it might not change. So being able to look internally, see how you're going about your day now and changing it, that always helps me get over rejection a lot as well.
Thank you. And second to last question. How do you approach making big career decisions and taking risks? I'll start with Jeff.
I mean, I think so. I don't know if you guys know who Tim Ferriss is. He's a big podcaster. He always talks about this idea of fear setting. So basically, and I even just had this thought about fear setting when we were on the last question. Like, it effectively is like this line of thinking of like, okay, what's the worst that could happen? So you're considering even like within the context of one deal, it's like you get stressed, and it happens to me too. You get stressed. You have this big deal. Is it going to close? Are they going to go with us? And you kind of just like, strip it down. Like, okay, well, what's the worst that could happen? They don't go with us. Okay, then what? Like, okay, well, still have a job. They still have more opportunity. What if none of those close? Okay, well, maybe I'll lose my job. Okay, then what? Am I going to be homeless? Probably not. I can go find another job. I also think that, like, just not to go off on too much of a tangent, like, if you can sell, you'll never need a job. There's better sales jobs than others, and there's better territories and better products, sure. But if you can sell, you'll never go extended periods of time without a job, especially as you get older and build a network and everything. But like, I kind of just like strip it down. Okay, so what is the worst that could happen? Like, that's really it. Like, you lose your job. That is the worst possible outcome here. So when it comes to career decisions, risk, you're weighing 2 jobs versus one another. But by the way, I don't know if I should say this or not, but I'll say it anyway. So when I was here, my senior year, I had 2 job offers, and I'll just share the salaries, whatever. So one was to go manage a Quick Check. The Quick Check came in. It was a $50K salary. Again, this was 10 years ago, with like opportunity for a bonus, whatever. Manage a Quick Check. It was also like the overnight shift. It was like, I think it was like 8 p.m. to 4 a.m. or whatever. Yeah, something like that. And then I had this other offer for about half of that for a sales job. And it was very tempting to go with the Quick Check route, right? I'm like doing the math on, can I move out? What's the math on like the paycheck and everything? And kind of like bit the bullet and took the job that was about half and was selling those promotional products and worked my way up and ended up kind of going to another sales job and, ended up working out. And I remember like doing a really deep analysis on like those 2 jobs and which one I should take. And obviously I was sacrificing salary and everything and kind of like making an investment in just this sales path more long-term and what it could mean in 5 years and 10 years and 20 years. And, there's obviously risk in both sides, but I remember just kind of doing that analysis and also thinking about like, what's the worst that could happen. And yeah, just those mental models help me make decisions at least.
Thank you. Nick?
Yeah, so I mean, I think the first thing would be when you wake up in the morning, do you like what you do, or are you dreading going into the office? And I think that's kind of the first thing that you should look at. And it's one of the reasons why I've made kind of some big transitions at Noresco, going from estimating to project management to full-time sales. Is, I felt like I kind of had reached a plateau of what I was doing, and I wasn't growing anymore, and I was just too complacent with where I was. And that's why I've done that. I would say the most risky thing I've done was actually when I left Hilti. At that time, Hilti was in Home Depot's. They had ended their relationship right around 2 years when I was at the company, which basically meant most people got laid off, and some people were eligible to be promoted, but it would require you relocating. So I was looking at, potentially relocating to Texas or Canada for that position. Realized that wasn't for me. So I took the layoff. I ended up getting my master's full-time from Columbia in sustainability management, because I realized that what I wanted to do was focus on energy efficiency and, decarbonizing the built environment. And through those classes and coursework, I kind of gained some of the expertise and was able to kind of take that next landing step to Noresco.
Thank you. And Kyle?
Yeah, it's funny, as you guys were all answering the question, I was thinking in my head, we all have these big situations where we make career decisions and we think it's going to define our career. But looking back after each career decision I've made, you never know the opposite outcome, right? So you never know what would have happened if you made that other decision. So I think that's a good thing, right? If you make decisions in your career and you stick with them and you put all you need and all your, heart into those decisions, you're really never going to make a bad decision. What I mean by that is, if you really care and you make those decisions and you decide to go a different route or something like that, you're not going to know what happened if you went the other route. So put all your trust in making those decisions. And yes, we have to mold them over. We have to make educated decisions about our career. But if you go into it with your whole heart and everything that you have, those decisions most of the time will work out for you. So obviously, I know a lot of you are going to have some big decisions to make with your careers and which way you guys want to go. But if you go into it with a good mindset, you should all be in really good spots.
Thank you. And thank you guys for sharing. My last question is, what is your favorite memory here at Willie P? And I'll start with Nick.
So, I mean, I did really love living on campus, and a good snow day, taking one of the cafeteria trays and going sledding down, some of these big hills was a lot of fun. I'll give you one other. It's not technically on campus, but I did a study abroad program my senior year, like over the winter break.
Which country?
We did 7 countries in 2 weeks.
Oh, wow.
I went with one other person from the sales department as well.
Was it in Europe or something?
Yeah, it was in Europe.
Okay.
So I was in Paris for New Year's. We were in Barcelona, went to a lot of other fun places, and Istanbul, Turkey as well, which was really cool. So that was definitely one of the I would say highlights that I've ever had. Definitely.
Sounds really fun. I'll go Kyle next.
Sure. So a big reason for me actually coming to William Patterson was for the hockey team here. So a lot of my relationships, a lot of my friendships all go back to my hockey friends. It's pretty cool. We still see each other on a regular basis. We still play men's league hockey. And so just thinking back to all the practices, all the games, all the, parties, those are memories you're going to have forever. And it's great because those people still show up for you, right? Just got married 2 weeks ago. I'm sorry, 2 months ago.
Oh, congratulations.
Thank you. And it's so nice to, see all of them showing up and not we show up for each other. So the relationships you build here are gonna last forever. So really, really good place to be. Obviously I actually never lived in Heritage, but we always hung out there. So good memories all around this campus.
Thank you. And Jeff?
Yeah, I think working in the Shea office was very cool. So I mean, from like a professional academic standpoint, just being able to, I'm going to marketing classes during the day, and then being able to actually practice some of the things that I'm learning and have ideas and put it into use in like a real world setting, and think about how do we get customers in the door for this concert or this performance, and what group, like what demographic is best to target. Like we were working on like real world problems, and it was very cool just being able to put some of what I was learning conceptually in the classroom into practice in the theater. Also met one of the guys who worked in that office, and he was a guy who hired me, became very friendly with him. He was a groomsman at my wedding, still very good friend of mine. So yeah, just a lot of relationships and a lot that was learned over the years.
Okay. I know you worked at the Shea Center, but did you ever like participate in like a play or
No.
Okay. No problem. And well, thank you guys so much for being here. Thank you guys for listening. Do you guys want to like add any? Actually, I think we have questions. I'm sorry. Do you guys have any questions? Any questions?
Yeah. So, Kyle, I believe you opened up with one of the questions. You're saying just putting your all into something. I've been going back to an internship, but I'm also I still have other options. And for me, there's pros and cons to both of them. How do you come to a decision with that? Like I know you said putting your all into that, but how would you say makes sense for you, and how did you find what made sense for you again?
Yeah, great question. It's tough, and I don't want to say that where I was going with that, it wasn't pick one direction and go with it, right? It's fine to have different things that you want to go about, but use this time to figure out what you truly find passion in, right? What energizes you, what gets you out of bed in the morning, what makes you feel fulfilled, and put more of your effort into that, right? And as time goes on, you're going to see which way you get more enjoyment, which path you get more enjoyment really going about. So hope that answers your question.
I believe it was Jeff that said not to get cocky when the good times are rolling. So what does that entail, and what kind of process do you use that still stays true even when times are good?
Yeah, good question. I think so. I've been at my current company for 6 years selling software. I definitely have developed like a style and habits and like the way that I sell, the way that I demo, the questions I ask on demos. And I think, when anyone does the same thing for so long, even if it's working, you run the risk of it just getting stale or outdated or ineffective. And if I'm not like constantly being open-minded to the way that other people are doing things, I think that's where I kind of run the risk of being cocky, where if I just assume that because what I've done for X number of years is the way to do it, is how I should always be doing it, I think that's a really like dangerous formula. So like, we have new hires that come in. We use a company called Gong that records all of our demos. So like every sales rep at the company, I can go and listen to any one of their demos. And I do make it a practice. I probably should do it even more, that people who have been there for a year or two, go listen how they demo. Like, how are they explaining certain concepts? I'm sure that if I listen to a 60-minute demo, there's one or two ways that they explain things, or even like like demoing is very much an art, like the order of which you show things, what you click on the demo side. There's always like really specific nuances, but just making sure that I'm staying open-minded, and the way that I've always done things doesn't mean that it's the way forward.
Thank you.
Hi guys, how's it going? I had a question regarding you guys spoke about disqualifying leads. So my question to you guys would be, how many no's before like disqualifying a lead? How many no's?
It's tough to really put like a number or anything on that. Sometimes it's more of just like a gut feeling than anything else. I would say typically what I found is you need to touch a client at least 7 or 8 times before you actually get a sale for what I do. Maybe that's not the case with everything, but within those, there sometimes I try and put a little bit of homework on the client to see if they are worth my effort. If they're willing to put in a little bit of effort, then I'm willing to put in a little bit of effort. And sometimes you got to do it piece by piece with those types of things. And I don't know. There's no kind of hard and fast rule where I'm gonna say no. If in my industry it's very small. There's only a handful of general contractors that do the certain types of work, certain types of projects. So I don't want to necessarily just shun someone, because even if I'm not going to work with them on this project, I might work with them on something else in the future.
Hi guys, my name is Gabby, and I want to say thank you for this wonderful panel. I want to ask that all of you really mentioned like feeling out what your situation is, understanding like the different aspects of your situation. How do you train that intuition that you guys have? And then how do you also build that resilience? Because we're talking a lot about, emotional intelligence, those type of things to make sure you're going through the highs and lows. But how do you actually do that? And what do you wish you did differently maybe when you were younger so that you could be in this position today again?
Really good question. I have to think a little bit. No, I think when you talk about emotional intelligence, right? I wouldn't say I'm 100% emotionally intelligent now, right? On a day-to-day basis, there's going to be things that make me angry, that make me, question what I'm doing. But it's when you're going through all that, taking a step back is really important, right? Putting yourself in the other person's spot too can be important. You're going to have workplace conflicts. You're going to have stuff that goes on. But really being able to take a step back and look at where you've come from, where you started, and where you are now, is something that should build that confidence for you to be emotionally intelligent and make the right decisions, right? If you put the confidence in yourself that you're going to make the right decisions on a daily basis, you won't be worried about the little decisions that come and go each day, right? Because I can tell you right now that there's probably decisions that I've made this morning with my team that I would have pondered over for 2 to 3 days previously, right? And once you do it and you know that there's no negative repercussions or anything like that, it makes it a lot easier to make quicker decisions on a daily basis.
Hi, my name is Sophia. I'm a professional sales major, so it was super interesting hearing you guys kind of speak about that. A few of you mentioned having an MBA. So how important do you think having one is kind of in the sales industry? And would you recommend getting it straight out of college, after the undergrad, or kind of waiting a few years?
I don't know if this is a controversial take or not, but I don't think it's super valuable, at least in my line of work. And I'll give you a quick story. So I work with this guy. He's an account executive. He lives in London. He's a kid to me, at least. He's 28 or something. And he lives in London, and he's got a British accent. And I guess in London and Britain, where your accent is from is a little bit of a status symbol. It's there's these different accents, and oh, this girl has a really posh accent. It means she's from Mayfair. It's I don't know, but whatever. This kid, I can barely understand him. He's street kid, came from London, a lot of British slang. I can barely understand him. Anyway, the reason I'm bringing this up is that this kid, Marcello, dropped out of high school, started selling windows or something door to door at 17, went into software sales, started a company called Bloomreach, which is a competitor to Optimove. And he was a BDR. He was setting meetings, usually the entry level in the software sales world. He was a BDR at Bloomreach for a couple of years, became an account executive at Bloomreach, came to Optimove. He's been an account executive for 4 or 5 years. The kid's 27, great seller, on an amazing trajectory, has 10 years of selling experience. He'll be a VP of sales in 7 years at 34, right? And he has no education. He just has experience. He has boots on the ground. He's sold millions and millions of dollars of software and has just tons of years behind him. And my personal take is like that is more valuable and more like in demand than like more classroom experience. Again, I don't know if I know we're at a university here, so I don't want to like discourage higher education here, but yeah, that's my take on it.
I'll give the other side because that's definitely a good view as well. And I think that I learned more in my first 2 years at Hilti, not more than college, but I think that real life experience is very valuable, right? But on the other side, I will say that if your company provides it, like Hilti actually provided, they paid for my MBA. It is so beneficial. I wish, looking back, that I took my MBA even more seriously. I did the classes, I showed up, I did all the projects. I just wish that I had the knowledge that I have now and was able to go through my MBA again, because I think I would have got more out of the classes. With 10 years of sales experience and knowing what goes on a day-to-day with sales, I think the MBA would have been more beneficial to go through now. But I could still remember some of the classes and some of the higher learnings that you get from those kind of classes. So as was said, I don't think it's 100% needed, but it's a nice thing if your company offers it to look into. And I would definitely say do it early rather than later. Life gets crazy. Stuff happens. So get your education as early as possible if you do plan on doing that.
I would say don't do it right away, but also don't wait too long for the same reason. I don't know at this stage in my life that I would be able to do a master's degree at this point, but I would say for most sales, it's not really necessary, but for some technical sales, it could be very helpful. I do look back to a lot of the stuff I've done for my master's program, and it comes in handy a lot with what I do in my current job. But that's not typical, I would say, for a lot of sales positions.
Hi, my name is Renaka Saira. So I'm a double major in finance and professional sales. Again, thank you guys for coming today and taking your time out of your day to be here and explain your journey, especially as a student and, transitioning into your full-time careers. I have a question for maybe possibly that you can answer for the rising juniors and the rising seniors who are about to graduate. I know this is one question that is always on top of my head and everyone else's head too. But what advice do you give after graduating college on looking for a job? How do you stand out and receive that job? Because I think that is one concerning question that I have since I am graduating soon. And what important advice do you think is valuable to get that career?
I can start with that. I would say, I think right now the job market is probably pretty challenging. It was very challenging, when I graduated in 2012 as well. I think, the ways to stand out is utilize the fact that the RBI program has sponsorships. I met with my then boss, Scott McCown, for for probably a year and a half before I actually got a job. And, he was trying to recruit me for a while. And then finally I was like, hey, tell me a little bit about Hilti. And he's like, oh, come with me. So, having those people here, like try and develop those relationships, network with them while you're still here. It's going to make a big difference. Outside of that, make sure that you are on time or early to every interview. You can't be late. Make sure that you send, follow-up thank you emails after every round that you do. And make sure that you research the companies that you're interviewing with. Be able to bring up certain facts or, questions about maybe you found like something in their, mentorship program that they have on their website. Like ask questions about things that you did research on about that company.
all good points. I'm going to, if you take one thing away from this, like what I'm about to say, I think is maybe the most valuable thing that I've said and definitely the most actionable. So there's this guy, Ramit Sethi. He's like a podcaster, YouTube guy, wrote a book. He's more big on like personal finance, but he has this tip that I heard like 10 years ago. I've used it so many times. It is so effective for interviewing. It's called the briefcase technique. So basically, you have an interview and like, let's assume that it's for a company that you really want. Like you're really, gung-ho about this company. Before the interview, this whole thing could take an hour, less than an hour. You research, you Word document, and I'll tell you why it's called briefcase technique in a second, but you Word document, put their logo at the top, and you basically outline like 3 bullet points. And what you actually say in it, the content of it is not as important as the fact that you did it. But like ideally you're saying, hey, these are the 3 areas that I think that I could help with right away. Hey, it looks like you guys are trying to grow in the telecom space. I know that this company is looking to whatever, like boom, couple bullet points. It seems like you guys are hiring a lot for this services role, whatever, like 3 bullet points. And like the dramatics of it is kind of the play. So you're interviewing, you wait for some like remotely relevant question where they're like, I don't know, why do you think you're a good fit for this role or something like that? And you say, well, actually, and I guess most interviews now are in Zoom, but in real life, you're supposed to be like, well, actually, then you like put your briefcase on the table, which I don't even know if briefcases are a thing anymore, but you put like a folder. I usually would have done it with a folder, and you put 2 copies of it, you print it out. I actually started to think about some reasons why, I'd be a good fit or whatever. And if they interviewed 10 people that day, nobody else is doing that. Nobody else is doing that. And the whole idea, especially if it's face-to-face, if it's physical, you're like leaving the copy with them. And if you don't like completely just throw up on yourself in the rest of the interview, you will make an impression and you will, I've had tremendous success with it. I did it so I haven't interviewed in a while, but was reached out to for like this like advisory role consulting gig thing that I'm really excited about. I was traveling last week on the plane. I just did like a Google Doc, just put together like a page. Hey, these are like the intros I think I can make. These are the middle of the interview. I said, well, actually, then I just shared my screen, showed the Google Doc, started to scroll through. Like that is the way to separate yourself from the masses. And if you have an in-person interview and you can literally print it out and you put your logo at the top and 2 copies, leave them with it, you will stand apart beyond anybody else.
Yeah, I would just follow up with find a company that fits you, right? It's such a competitive market out here that a lot of the times we think we need to be everything to every certain company. But a lot of times it's not that way, right? Find your fit, find a culture that fits you. Speaking for myself, the Hilti culture has fit me so much that I've stayed here for 10 years, right? There's more than selling the widget that you're selling, right? What does the company offer for you? Is it something that you really want to invest yourself in? Because you're going to go into that interview with a lot more excitement than if you go interview for a company where you're like, I don't really believe in this company's culture, right? So if you're able to tie yourself to that company in an emotional way, I think you're going to bring a lot more to that company, and that company is going to bring a lot more to you. So it's a symbiotic relationship.
Hi, my name is Tori. I'm a double major in sales and marketing. So I would like to believe that I'm already setting myself up to get a career in sales. I mean, I'm involved in the sales club. I'm a student worker for the RBI, student ambassador, participate in sales competitions. So the list goes on. But I've met sales professionals that would mention that even if they're at an event and their client needs them, they would sneak away from the event. And I've listened to sales podcasts where the other sales professionals saying that they have personal time and work time, and they draw the line. But how do you guys maintain all your relationships, like your personal relationship, your social, family, and your professional relationships?
I can start with this one. So I actually think that one of the biggest mistakes that people make in sales, especially early on, is they put the buyer on a pedestal and they create this unhealthy dynamic where I'm the salesperson, you're the buyer, you have all the control, you have all the power. And I think it's like a very like toxic dynamic that it can create. So like your example was a great example. where I can't tell you how many people I've seen where a prospect, a client, hey, can you meet at 3:00? And they have something at 3:00, work related or not, or whatever. Like, and they like move everything around. And like, I'm a firm believer that you should be able to push back and say, I have a 3:00. How's 4:00? Like having a little bit of pushback is I think sellers really need to establish themselves that they can't be pushed around. This is maybe a little bit more controversial. I don't know if I would like preach this, but I stopped thanking people for their time. It's a big thing. When I'm writing emails, when I'm getting on calls, I stop thanking people for their time. What usually like my first line of like a follow up from a demo, I'm like, really enjoyed the conversation today. I think when we create this like, I'm the seller, I'm below, you're the buyer, it creates a really unhealthy dynamic. I think it's harder to sell like that. I think what we need to remember is, in many cases, like we have something that they want. We have a solution, a product, a service that solves their issue, maybe, and our time is valuable too. And hopefully it's in some ways just as valuable as theirs. So like I'm a firm believer that if you have a conflict, if you have something, like you shouldn't be afraid to push back on a client or a prospect. If they're that fickle that they're like, oh, you can't meet at 3:00, well, sorry, like they probably weren't buying anyway. That's just my opinion.
Yeah, I would say, part of that goes back to qualifying your leads as well. Like if you're getting a client that says, hey, I need this by tomorrow all the time, that might not be the client that you want to be working with. If you're not able, like you said, to be able to push back and say, I can't do tomorrow, how about next week? If they can meet you halfway, then, maybe there's an opportunity to work together. But, in my industry, being able to try and turn something around that quick is very unlikely. And in terms of the work-life balance overall, I don't think anybody has a great answer to that. I will say that I try and make it a point to use every vacation day that I have every year. It's kind of a use it or lose it thing at my company. I've been there for 12 years, so I do get a lot. I get like 4 or 5 weeks, but I use almost every day. And sometimes that does sacrifice some potential opportunities because I'm not around. But that's the trade-off that I'm willing to take because the family time is also as important as the work time.
Yeah, I guess to end it, I would just say that it's important that you also are realistic, right, with your weeks, right? Don't pack your weeks. Make it so that you have your personal time, you have your work time, and that's it, right? Draw your lines and make your lines very firm, right? Because it can get overwhelming. And at that, that's when you get angry. That's when you get frustrated. But ultimately, I would say that what really drew me to sales was that work-life balance. And right, if you're going to sell, you can continue to sell and make more and more money, but when you can reel it back and actually not have to worry about, killing yourself over working too much. So that's important.
Oh, we have one more. Okay.
I want to thank you guys for your time and all your insight. As someone with a lot of secondary backgrounds, I have an HVAC and a music degree. I was wondering if it's more of the fact that you should kind of go into the sales kind of job and with a background, or kind of just roll with the punches and do it as you're going.
Sorry, what was the question on that?
The question is it better to have a secondary background beforehand or to kind of get it afterwards?
Yeah, I mean, so are you asking if it's better to have like a secondary background in, you said music and HVAC, right?
Yeah. So like I would go into like HVAC sales. Like, is it better to have that degree beforehand, or kind of learn with the job as you're going with it?
Yeah, I mean, I'll take this in a little bit of a different direction than your question. When people think of Hilti, my company, they think of construction sales, right? That is not what we're really attracting. We want people that are going to be able to learn product, be agile, and then sell the product on a daily basis. So, you said HVAC, and that's obviously in the construction industry. That would be a major upside for someone looking to hire, but it's not a necessity. So I would say, great that you have the backgrounds, but don't limit yourself to going into something that has to have that background, right? because we look at it more of like a cross training kind of aspect where, yes, you're maybe an expert in that side, but does he have the learning ability to be able to be great on another topic? So all of your previous, knowledge is great, but don't limit yourself to that specific demographic.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any more questions?
Just one last thing. For Jeff, the thing that you said about my name is Xavier. The thing you said about not putting the customer on a pedestal, I thought that was very powerful. I work at a country club, and like I worked there for 4 years, so I'm much more comfortable. So I worked there as a golf caddy, so it's somewhat of a sales position because you're working for your tip and everything. But when I first got there, I kind of put them on a pedestal. But what would you say helped you guys a lot, Jeff too, but the rest of you guys, to not put the customer on a pedestal? Because I think a lot of times when you're asking for something, when you're trying to achieve something, you put something on a pedestal, and that's like the end all be all. But how have you guys like overcome that and just move forward with that?
First of all, I think it's easier said than done. Like
Sure.
I totally admit that, and I think it's something that's easier as you develop more experience and accumulate just more time under your belt and everything like that. So I definitely acknowledge that. I think depending on whatever you're selling, hopefully is solving a problem for people, right? And I'll just speak from my perspective in software. Like we have clients that are using our software that are getting great results. They're getting an ROI. They're paying us X, and they're making 10x that or 15x that on what they're using the software for. So I think making sure that that's front of mind and like reminding yourself internally that, hey, I have something that they want. As much as I want to close a deal and I want them to return my call or get on this meeting or sign a contract or whatever you're trying to get them to do, it should be hopefully mutually beneficial. So I think being really just armed and equipped with like the results and the success that you see with other clients and keeping that front of mind and just always telling yourself that you have something of value. Your time is of value. The solution that you're selling could be of value. I think there's a lot of buyers out there who will kind of, if they're given that inch, they'll take a mile. Like if they see a seller that's acting more passive or they're not like pushing back, then they will become more aggressive. They'll like try to see what they can get from you. They'll walk on you. They'll no-show meetings. They'll schedule last minute. So I think it's also just like keeping that like resistance against them so that it doesn't become like too much of a lopsided dynamic. But yeah, just reminding yourself that you have something that they need and your time is valuable too.
Yeah, and just to kind of add on that a little bit, my ultimate goal as a salesperson is to really be my client's trusted advisor for sustainability. And being more an advisor than a salesperson, that's kind of more of a collaboration type of environment than really, having a kind of a plateau versus me. I don't know what else. Do you have anything else?
Yeah, I would just say know who you're talking to, right? Construction professionals are known to be rough around the edges, right? So being able to bring it down to their level and communicate. Obviously, I'm talking from the construction side, but leveling with your customers and making it known that your time is important, just as important as their time is, and that your product is going to help them, right? So I talked earlier about building that confidence in yourself, confidence in your product, and confidence that you actually have a solution for what they're looking for, right? If you do that, you even the playing field, right? They need you just as much as you need them to make the sale. You need them to use your product, and then they need your product. So it's a direct correlation. So it shouldn't be that they're up here and you're down here, right? Very fine to appreciate their time, but they should also appreciate your time too. And if you show them that, they're going to want to do business with you a lot more.
Yeah, I'll give you just a quick example. This happened last week. I had a demo set. This was 2 weeks ago. It was Friday. Let's just say it was like a 1:00 demo. and I'm on the Zoom at 1 o'clock. He doesn't show up. I text him. I gave him 5 minutes. I get off the Zoom, right? I go upstairs. I'm working from home. And he texts me or emails me back or whatever at like 1:08. And he's like, hey, I'm on the Zoom. It was only a 30-minute. Usually I'm doing 60-minute demos. It was 30 minutes. So I think that like a greener, less experienced rep would have ran downstairs, 1:08. Okay, he's on. Let's try to get the meeting done in 22 minutes. I said, we're already short on time. Let's move for next week. Right? Like these little like nuances. Like I'm not on your, you showed up 8 minutes late to the call. I'm not just like at your beck and call to jump on whenever you're ready. Like we had a 1 o'clock call. You were late. We'll do it next week. So like these little things, I think, just help establish this dynamic properly.
Thank you for sharing. Any more questions? Okay.
BATNA, WATNA, and a couple other things. So for anyone who doesn't know, BATNA is best alternative to a negotiated agreement. WATNA would be the worst alternative. Do you guys actually use that like in the field or when you're, I guess, approaching a negotiation or something like that? Or is that really just kind of left behind in the books?
So I guess I'll take it first. Short answer, I haven't heard that since I graduated here. Long answer, yes, we do. Because when you think about it, we're doing that every day, right? You're going through best alternatives, worst alternatives for current deals we're working on, but you're not thinking of it in that school term where you have to put it on an answer sheet for a question on a test, right? But it definitely does come out when you're working on deals, negotiating, and just throughout daily life.
Thank you. Anybody else want to add?
Sure. I've never heard those terms before, but I would say that they are still very applicable. And I'll give you an example. I'm working with NJIT right now. They're building a new dormitory, Oak Hall. They have to spend a lot of money to build this very large residence hall. So they're very cash constrained right now, and trying to get their LEED certification and get the building commissioned and everything like that. So we're going through all those alternatives of, all right, well, what can you approve now versus they can't approve the whole contract. So how about if we just break it off into pieces and give us a little bit of this scope now, just keep us on track. And and we're trying to figure out ways to get incentives to pay for some of this and that, just to get the deal done. It's taken a long time, but they've started construction. We've gotten half of our contract awarded, and they want to get the rest of it done. It's just a matter of trying to find those alternatives to get there, to get to yes.
Thank you. And with that, I just want to tell you guys, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for this discussion that we had. I think we all learned a lot from it. I took like a lot of notes, so it was really good. And just want to say thank you once more. So thank you guys.